Alright, so this man's a worker. In fact, for the cases of this scenario, this man is a coal worker. Note the ground. This is the man's boss. Note the money. Also note that the boss is above ground and the worker is below ground. I also ask you to note that this worker is not very happy. And it turns out that this is not the only worker who isn't happy. In fact, there are 50 of them. And so what do these 50 workers decide to do? They form a union. So what exactly does that union do? Well, it makes it so that the conditions of being underground aren't so bad. It makes it so that there's ventilation in the coal mine. It makes it so that there's safe exit outs. It makes it so that their working conditions are much better. Then, the union realizes something. The boss, who is still above ground, has a whole lot of money in his hands. And the union, they get greedy. So when the union gets greedy, they create something called collective bargaining, in which case we now put the boss over here. And what happens is that these people, when they want money, they appeal to the boss as a union and they negotiate what they want changed. And when they agree on something, they call it a CBA, a collective bargaining agreement. So these guys, the union, starts controlling the money that they make, the hours, every little aspect of their jobs they're trying to control. Of course, the boss doesn't like this, but what's he going to do? If he doesn't appeal to these guys, all of his workers are just going to quit. And so basically, these guys, the unions, are creating enough terms and conditions that this guy doesn't have anything more to give. These guys are putting in 20% and he's putting in 80% on their retirements. But now let's just change up the scenario. Now this boss is the government of Wisconsin. And these guys are the Public Workers Union. These are the people who work for the state of Wisconsin. Now the state of Wisconsin has been having to promise a lot of things to these guys because they've been using a bunch of CBAs to get what they want. And basically, the government doesn't have that kind of money. Like I said, they're putting in 80% of the retirement fund for these workers. And so the government of Wisconsin has a major problem. Now I introduce you the next player, Governor Walker. Governor Walker has decided something. All of these CBAs that these workers are wanting him to fill have to be paid with taxpayer dollars. And they don't want to take this money from the people because it's going to the workers, which they don't even have enough money to pay for. They would have to increase taxes substantially. So he wants to take collective banking and all these CBAs and reduce them. He doesn't want to completely destroy them because these CBAs are a good thing. They help protect the worker and make sure that the worker is in good conditions. But they've gone far too far. They were starting to promise these people things that they didn't even have. And so they have to change it up somehow. Because once they start promising people these things, then they have to start taking things from me. Literally, they have to take things from me. I'm currently 15, and when I'm 30, I'm going to have to be paying taxes on these people's retirement plans. I don't want to do that. I mean, talk about taxation without representation. I have no say in this. So, Governor Walker wants to cut the CBAs, to take away from taxpayer dollars, taxpayers who aren't even taxpayers yet, like me. And so I introduce one more character, the teacher. But not just the teacher. Every public school teacher in Wisconsin, because they are public school teachers. Guess where they get their work employment from? The government. Because since they're public school teachers, they go through their city governments, which then go to their state governments. So what are these 800 teachers going to do? Well, obviously they're going to riot. It only makes sense that they should riot, except for that it doesn't. Because remember what I said, they have all these IOUs that they're trying to want to get filled. It's nothing that they actually have, yet they are so defensive about it. These teachers, they put in 20% of their retirement fund, and the government puts in 80%. Do you know what 100% of their retirement fund is? I was looking, it's like $100,000. That's a lot. They make like $90,000 a year, and then they want to keep making that when they retire. They took these unions and they abused them. They got greedy and they started to push them until they got everything they wanted and they could just live lives of luxury and not actually have to put in any work. And so these teachers are upset because something that they didn't work for is being taken from them. And I know this sounds like a very Republican thing to say, but if you are in my generation, if you were born in the 1990s or the early or late 1980s, you should be worried about this because I don't want to have to be filling these IOUs with my taxes in the future. Now, I don't want to fire these teachers because they're teachers and we have really poor education. We need them there right now. But I'd like this guy and these people to work together, come to some sort of agreement. I mean, the teachers have to be reasonable here, Governor Walker has to be reasonable here, but we have to make some sort of agreement. I'll admit there's a big problem with a government telling you that it's going to give you something and then not giving it back, but there's just as big a problem with collective bargaining. And I think if all these people took a little bit more time to be a little bit more selfless and to think a little bit more beyond what their job is right now, I think they would realize that something needs to be done about this that's not going to put it on me. And this is not just something that's happening in Wisconsin. This is something that's happening all over. It's just Wisconsin is the first state that's actually doing something about it and actually having arguments about it. And even worse, this is happening within companies. Within companies, the unions are getting more and more and more, so that it gets ridiculous. It has to be fixed in some way. And I've been racking my brain over how to fix it, but every way that I think, it just gets more and more complicated. If you have any ideas, please post them down in the comments because I'm extremely interested. Politics is one of my favorite things, and this event in particular has been extraordinarily interesting to me. Like I said, I don't want to fire all the teachers, although it was wrong of them to leave from their work and to pretend that they were sick and to get these fake doctor notes, which are actually being signed by people who are doctors in Wisconsin who can lose their license right now. We need them there. We need the teachers in Wisconsin. So we need to work out an agreement. Thank you for listening to me rant. I'm going to have another flashcard video tomorrow, except for it'll be more historical. That's all I want to talk about for today, and I will see you in the next video. Aclophobia is the fear of crowds and mobs, and now you know.